time by Mick O'Dwyer. Off away Liston to Kevin McCabe for Tyrone. Struggling to hold on to it. Timmy Dowd again, up on his man. Ger Power, 1-8 to 5 points to score. Kerry behind, Pat Spillane, a goal! A goal by Pat Spillane! A brilliant goal and a brilliant reply. A goal and 3 points. Pat Spillane has now scored.
I want to tell you that he's a fearless commentator, not afraid to tread on the toes of people in high authority, including the GAA. You either hate him or love him for what he has to say about Gaelic games. Would you welcome, please, Pat Spillane? He's looking fine and healthy and good. Look at the picture of health. The picture of health and fitness, there's no doubt about it. Now, what was the worst reaction, Pat, that you ever had to something that you said in an article?
Where do I start?
Yeah.
Well, I started, I mean, it's a funny old world. I retired from Gaelic football inter-county level at 91 after 17 years at senior level. Didn't make a bob out of it and enjoyed every bit of my experience, and if the man above beam me up tomorrow morning, I'd be happy.
You'd be happy.
I've been retired for 7 years, and now I write about it in the Sunday World, and I talk about it in television. And I get paid for it, which is
a nice turn.
Which is lovely. I'm not
worst
complaining.
reaction, though, that you ever had to say?
I've had some very I mean, because the one thing I decided that when I came on television and with the newspaper, that I called something as I see it. And I think people, I think Irish sports viewers are discerning viewers. They don't want the old crap that you see on Sky Sport television, where it's all sugar and spice and all things nice, and the game is fabulous, even if you know the game is a load of shite. Do you know? So, I mean, I will call a game as I see it, and I will call, if I see somebody acting the tug in the field, well, I will call it him a tug.
Right.
I've had some bad experiences. 2 years ago, Mayo played, Mayo was probably the most frightening experience, because 2 years ago, they were playing the Connacht final, and I wrote an article about, prior to the Connacht final, that if they played as bad as they did in the semi-final, they needn't bother getting out of bed to play the Connacht final.
Yes.
And I added on that obviously a team under John Mahon has to be taken into serious consideration, and they have a great chance. But of course, obviously they just used the first 2 lines, and Mayo won the Connacht final, and they went to play Kerry in the All-Ireland semi-final, and unfortunately, well, from my point of view, that's Mayo won. And for at the end of the game, I was up in the Crow's Nest, which is, anyone is familiar with Crow Park, it's in the Nally stand, and at the end of the game, approximately 500 Mayo supporters decided to congregate at the bottom of the Crow's Nest to vent their feelings and to let what they thought of me. And I got a guard escort down off of the Crow's Nest. It wasn't a very nice experience. I had a very, very bad experience 3 years ago, commenting on a Derry Armagh game. And it was a particularly vicious game where there was an awful lot of belting on and off the ball, and I got in big trouble over it, because on that night in the Sunday game I called some of these guys tugs, which I felt quite justified in saying. I genuinely thought if you hit a guy a punch and there's no ball around, you're a tug. Anyway, it wasn't taken too kindly particularly by the powers that be in RT, and there was worry that there might be a libel action from both Derry and Armagh. And at the time, I think RT Sports Department were calculating 30 players, that's from the 2 teams, at 30 grand apiece. That's 900 grand. And I said, so I was in a bit of trouble, so they said, look, the following week that I'd better apologise, but not to withdraw. No, sorry, withdraw the remark,
yes,
but not to apologise.
Yes.
Which I did the following week, and I went 2 steps forward and about 10 miles backwards, and I got myself into deeper shine. And the following Monday, anyway, that I was on the Monday game, which was at the time, and I said, look, give me one last chance. Put it on auto cue. I'll get it right. 3 lines, I'll read it out and I'll apologise. And I genuinely, I mean, I don't want to offend anyone in the GA, which I did. And I talked to a barrister friend of mine after, you know, and I say, I mean, am I not justified or entitled to call a guy a tug? If he kicks a guy on the ground and there's no ball around, if suddenly, when the ball is at the other end of the field, that a guy, and he says, you're not, so you cannot call a guy a tug. So I actually asked him for advice on that occasion on what can I call a guy the next time such a scenario. So seemingly, it's not libelous, I can call a guy a blackguard.
But not a tug.
I've learned my lessons. Now, in fairness now, I mean, I think outside of that, I get a lot of abuse. I mean, I can't have a, I don't have an answering machine on the telephone because the abusive phone calls were just too much. The letters are horrendous. But I can't honestly understand why a guy could spend an hour writing a scurrilous letter to me, abusing me from all, and at the end of an hour's writing, not even bother signing his name. Now, if I did an hour's work, I'd like to get credit for it.
Exactly.
The only thing about it is, you know, when people, I mean, I can't understand, you know, when people are really full of venom and anger and really want to really express their frustration to you, they can't even hide it or conceal it in the address, because most and unfortunately most of the mail I get is not of the nice variety, and they can't. I mean, the address will be either something like Pat Spillane, so-called expert, Temple North, County Kerry, or Pat Spillane, bollocks. And I mean, County Kerry, yes, and they all get to me.
the post knows exactly what's on mine. There's never any doubt. I would say, actually, if they just wrote bollocks County Kerry, they'd still get to you. However, possibly it doesn't affect you unduly, Pat. It doesn't get under your wick.
Not a bit in the world. Not a bit in the world, and I have no regrets. I mean, and I think, I mean, I'm not saying it because I'm involved with RTE Sport and RTE Television, but RTE Sport, I think, is the best that there is around.
I've said it several times.
Because there's no frills, there's no fancy stuff. You get good, honest-to-goodness analysis. Like I said, people don't want to be treated to bland statements on television. They want, if they're seeing a match and there's analysis at half-time, they want it analysed properly, and they want it. And I'm very thankful to RTE Sport.
Do you miss playing?
Yes and no. Like I said, I played 17 years with Kerry. Never made a bob out of it. But I mean, it's funny the way, I mean, about sport, you know, there's funny thing, there's questions that go through sportsmen's minds throughout their career. Some questions you answer, some questions you ignore, and some questions you can't answer. And I mean, like I said, I really enjoyed my time at Gaelic football. I got injured in 1981 and had a very serious knee operation and was told I'd never play football again. And you know, for 2 years after, I said, I want to come back. Don't ask me why, but I knew there was problems. I knew I had arthritis, and I said, I want to come back. And like all through those years, you know what I mean? I used to take my sister's bike out, which is the lady's bike, and you remember the olden days with the two small wheels. And I used to do a session of 30 cycles up a hill of a half-mile, sitting on the saddle. And I said, is it worth it? You know, will it ever come back? You know?
To get the
and you say,
back.
I don't know why. I haven't an answer for that. You know, in 1990, I was dropped from Kerry, and I had an illustrious career, and I was very thankful for it. I've all the 8 All-Ireland medals, the 9 All-Stars, the whatever later. And I was dropped. And you know, there's something about a sportsman. Sports people like to go out on their own terms. And I decided, I was dropped from the pen, and I said, look, I want to prove them wrong. Now, why should I want to prove them wrong? I don't know. But I mean, I trained in 1990, and I was 35 years of age. And I trained, this is an amateur sport, and I trained 12 times a week, twice a day. And I used to come home. One of the training sessions I used to do 3 evenings a week was on a hill just below the bar, which is about 40 yards, full of muck and just a cow's field, you know. And I used to tie 2 10-pound weights to my ankles and sprint up there 30 times. And I say, why am I doing it?
2 10-pound weights? 2
10-pound weights onto my ankle. And I used to run up there...
uphill?
Yeah, and it was the time I was married, so my wife was delighted with washing the gear every day. But, you know, the other question, the last question on sport, you know, I mean, that hits a sportsman all the time is the last hurrah. When do I get out? I think you might have experienced this symptom now this year, the last hurrah, and when to get out. I mean, a sport, maybe, I don't know, being a talk show host, it's difficult to figure out whether you're doing good or bad. Being a sportsman, when the legs start going,
that's the end.
Well, you know it's...
Yes.
Now, Kerry, and I would be unbiased in my opinion, but Kerry, the team I was involved in, were probably the greatest Gaelic football team of all time. Isn't that right? Yes, that's...
And why? Why?
But I don't know, but...
why were they?
Why?
Training, fitness,
training,
new
fitness,
methods
new
and
methods.
else,
We were very professional. We matched... The Dubs were the first to start in really being very, very fit, and we matched them in 75.
Just you reminded me of something. Talk to me about your darling wife, Rosarie. How did she put up with all of this? I mean, you must have been missing most of the time. Well, training 10 times a week.
Yeah, yes, well, but the problem is that I got married in 87. Sorry,
yes.
Rosarie, I nearly got it wrong. 88. I knew it. It's unfortunate that all the dates that I can remember are dates about football.
I know, I thought that, yes, I figured that, yes.
I won no All-Ireland medal after 86. Now, work that one out. I got married in 88, so... I mean, football...
You were distracted.
Yes, I was. Football is a very selfish business. I mean, you talk about... I mean, going back to what I was talking about, the last hurrah. Mick O'Dwyer thought in 1989 that there was one last hurrah in us. That maybe we had one year left in us. And we played, it was in 87, we played in the All-Star Tour in San Francisco, and we got hockeyed. And for the first ever time, Miko organised a training session on the beach in San Francisco. And we should have known at this stage, he had a run for a half an hour. And the winner of that run was the county board chairman, who was running in his sandals. So I suppose we should have seen the writing on the wall. But having come back from San Francisco, he decided, we all decided, got together and we said, right, we'll give it one crack. We'll train as harder than we ever did, which we did. We did all running. And I mean, we did something like 60 laps every evening of a pitch in Tralee, divided into sort of 30, 20 and 10. Like after a few weeks, you said to Dwyer, how about a bit of variety? This is boring. Yes. And Dwyer did introduce variety, in fairness. We used to do laps of 25, 25 and 10. And sometimes we ran the other direction. But it was around the time I got married. Rosario, you'll kill me for this one, I know it, but it was around the time we got married. And like, I used to drive from Bantry to home, to Bar, work in the Bar for an hour, which is 34 miles from and then work in the Bar for an hour, go on to Tralee, which is another 35, 40 miles, train, come back home, work the last hour in the Bar, and it was crucifying tonight. It was absolutely crucifying. And like, you hardly make it into bed, not to mind anything else. To follow, yes. And I remember this night, as is the case, I suppose, with newly married couples and newly married brides, that the hand came over and the longing look in the eyes. And I said, Jesus, Alec, will you go away? I'm banjaxed. I said, Jesus, I can't do it. We'll go away. And it came over again 5 minutes later. And I said, go away, I'm ready. And she said, if Mick O'Dwyer wanted you to do it, you'd do it. And
Oh, well done, Rosa.
And I'm not saying it against Rosa because I've succumbed to her advances since. But I mean, it's a reflection on
that was 1986, Pat.
It's a reflection on what Dwyer was asking us. I can tell you this now, and it wasn't around in the time, but if Viagra was around, and he gave and every one of the Kerry team after the Dwyer training session got a bucket full of it, it wouldn't raise us. That's for sure.
Now, talk to me about the G at the moment. You've trod on their toes as well, Patrick Spillane.
I have. You have. You cannot take it from the fact that the GA is the most powerful, most impressive, and it's an outstanding organisation. Yes. And you can slag it for all it wants as being a grab-all association, whatever, but it's a magnificent association. Unbelievable voluntary work. They have a fabulous infrastructure in place. Crow Park is a credit to anyone. Every club, be they a small club, big club, have the dressing rooms, have whatever like that. And they're very, very good. But I think one thing that I have found to my cost is that, unfortunately, they don't take kindly to criticism, be it constructive or otherwise. And I found that out to my cost 2 years.
Do you think soccer should be played in Croke Park?
Well, I genuinely think that in Croke Park they have a magnificent stadium, capable of taking 70,000 people. It's a stadium that after September is idle, is not full again until July to the Leinster final. And I genuinely think that GA are at the crossroads with finance, at raising finance, that here you have an asset, here you have a building that could generate a lot of money by renting it out. And I honestly feel that the GA are being totally hypocritical in banning soccer and rugby from its grounds, because I cannot see if they can allow boxing, if they can allow American football and if they can allow concerts, I cannot see why they can stop other sports from being played in Ireland.
Good man. Next question. Do you think... That's a plain, straightforward... Next question. Do you think players should be paid?
I think, like I said, I think the GA is at the crossroads. The level of preparation, the level of commitment, the level of professionalism in the game is unbelievable now. The commitment by GA players now, the fitness levels that the GA players have reached now is higher than any professional sport. You saw it last Sunday in Croke Park, the Australians against the Irish. The Australians, some of those, the average wage of those Australians is about £200,000. They're full-time professionals, and at the last quarter, the Irish beat them in fitness. I mean, that'll tell you the level of commitment, the level of sacrifices. I honestly think it's coming to the time that you will have to see players compensated. The history of professional sport in Ireland of full-time is not good because we haven't got a population to sustain it. But I genuinely think that you have to see players being rewarded. The days of guys, I mean, you have to... being a top-class Gaelic footballer now is a very selfish business. And I said if I got married in 1975, I wouldn't have had any All-Ireland medals. I was very lucky that my mother... I was brought up in a footballing tradition and everything was geared to my game.
And you worked at it.
And I worked at it. I worked very hard.
Yes.
I mean, now, you're talking about commitment, you're talking about sacrifice, you're talking about no social life, no nothing. I mean, you're not... Most of the players, take the Kerry team, take the Galway team this year, I think they won the All-Ireland football, they had 2 married players. Last year's Kerry team, 2 married players. Maybe 1 child between each of them. The days of married guys playing top-class inter-county football, particularly over a long period of time, is long gone. I mean, I see with Kerry, I mean, I think this is one of the reasons why I think that the Kerry team have to be regarded. We were at the top in Gaelic football from 1975 to 1986. That's over a period of 11, 12 years. Totally amateurs, totally devoting everything to the game, and yet at the end of our time, all we were getting was another medal. And I can see it now. I don't think nowadays, because nowadays it's a 12-month a year. There's no close season. Nowadays I can't see, say, Galway, what's in it? I mean, when you win an All-Ireland, what's in it? There's 3 or 4, okay, and there's an All-Ireland medal, and that's not to be taken. It's a fabulous achievement.
Yes,
it's a fabulous achievement. What's in it after that? There's 3 or 4 weeks of a big piss-up. Probably costing you money. Fella slap you in the back. Then you have to go and raise money to go on a tour, selling tickets, whatever like that. Then it's the Christmas social circuit. You go around to the dinner dances, pat you on the back, drink away, whatever like that. And then you go on your tour. So you come back at the end of January and it's a start all over again. You say, what's in front of it for me? You know all the sacrifice, you know the commitment, you know the hardship, you know the torture you have to endure. And you say, what's in it? And you say, well, if we win it, there'll be another All-Ireland medal, another load of piss-ups, another tour. Yeah. And I think it's getting to the stage, it's very, very close. Like I said, it's very, very close. There's a lot of money being generated by the
what are you recommending, Pat? Do you think a short-term contract of some kind? Would 6 months or 3 months or whatever?
Yes, I think semi-professionalism is the thing. I think guys must be compensated for being out of pocket. I think guys should be in a position to make money out of their fame, out of their notoriety and whatever like that.
Yes.
I mean, maybe one of the things, I mean, youngsters aspire to being soccer players, and nowadays maybe even to a lesser extent being rugby players. And why? Because they see the lifestyle of the, I mean, it's the lifestyle of the soccer player, whatever. And I mean,
fast cars, fast women.
I mean, if I was a good PR guy, I mean, I would look. I mean, you see the build-up to an All-Ireland final, where you see photographs of some Joe Murphy from wherever the week before the All-Ireland final in his boiler suit at a machine and wherever, Colchimock or whatever like that. And to a youngster, they say, well, they don't aspire to that. I mean, if I was a player's man, I would get a big PR guy that would have newspaper or little snippets of a guy of county players hanging out in Lily's Bordello, or a couple of leggy blondes on their shoulders, a front page spread in Hello. I mean, something that and drive you around in their Ferrari.
Right,
okay,
right. Yes,
you know,
that would do it.
It's an image. Then it's portraying an image of something that players. I mean, the bottom line is, I mean, if you can be paid for your hobby, that's the ultimate.
Just going back to Mick O'Dwyer again for a moment, what was it about him that made players respect him so much?
It's amazing. I mean, his tactics could be written on
I don't know why we're talking about him in past tense, by the way. What is it? But in your day,
well, his tactics could be written on a postage stamp. Any fella can train a team, but no fella would have kept the same bunch of fellas motivated for winning a medal 11 years on. I don't know what. He was very good on man management. Miko never criticised you individually. Now, he'd say to you, Burn, you're the best corner forward in the world, and you're going to be the man we're going to build the team around next Sunday. And he'd come to me and he'd say the same thing. But he'd also say, Burton was a waster lesson there. And you'd know indirectly that the message was getting across. But I mean, one of the things the Wire saw at an early stage, I mean, he was an unbelievable motivator, don't I? I mean, the speeches were the same. I remember one year going out in All-Ireland final that he was doing the tumpy of the table and whatever like that. And his false teeth fell out on the table during the speech.
During the hype speech?
During the hype speech, just prior to going out on the pitch.
Yes.
And after the game, fellas, somebody said to one of the players, Jesus, they weren't that desperate about the Wire's teeth falling out during the speech. And not one of the players saw the Wire's teeth, because they had been hyped up to such an extent that they weren't physically they were in the dressing room, mentally they were playing the game already. The greatest thing that the Wire saw at an early stage that All-Ireland medals weren't going to be the carrot to dangle, and we needed, and he started to introduce the tours, and it started with the Canaries and went on to America. And in 1981 we went to Australia, Hawaii and whatever, and it was a fabulous trip. We raised £109,000, which was huge money, 14, and for the 5 in a row, which we were going for, obviously we had to build up from there, from Hawaii and Australia, and we had obviously tried to choose the most exotic location in the world for when we won 5 in a row. And we were going to Bali in Thailand. And obviously a certain team called Offaly spoiled those plans, because I remember the following day we saying that the only Bali we were going to was Bali fucking Bunyan.
And that was the end of that. Hold on a minute. I just want to... How are... You're looking terrific, Pat. You're really looking great, Nick. How are the knees? Bad?
The knees, 2 years ago I had another operation of my knees. I trained very hard 2 years ago to come back playing junior B football. And when you get older, you cheat. So I bought a running machine. And there was nights I watched the Late Late Show, suffering. I don't know whether suffering running or suffering watching. But anyway, because I trained so hard, my knee collapsed again, and I had an operation. And the surgeon, the specialist, said, "Look, you have the knees of a 70-year-old farmer. Can it get any worse?" I said. He said, "No." And he gave me a jar full of bones that he took out of it. He just took out of the knee that had been there. And he said, "Look, it won't get any worse.
Won't get any better."
I won't get any play. Now, the one thing I'm riddled with arthritis, and like I said, I mean, I have no regrets about my time. I would go back to it again. I'm riddled with arthritis. One of the things about being riddled with arthritis is that I can, and people who have arthritis will know, when it's about to rain, I mean, if there isn't a better weather forecast in the world than me, I can tell you when it's about to rain. But I suppose under the new regime here in RT, I mean, I won't get a job either. I don't have the looks or the legs or the cleavage, I suppose, for this job.
Well, I don't know about the legs, but you have the looks, Pat. One last thing, and I have to let you go, then we have to close because we're already over. Noel Carroll today, isn't it dreadful that a guy so fit and such a sportsman all his life should drop dead?
Yes, it's very sad. I mean,
isn't it shocking?
I mean, when you can live life by the book, and he did live life. He never drank, never smoked, and you say, I see it in the bar.
He ran every day. Yeah. Ran every day. You see it in the bar.
I mean, you see guys in the bar. I mean, that drink every night of the week, and I am very grateful to them for that. And you say, I mean, they're prime candidates for popping off. And the guys who you say are prime candidates for popping off 30 years ago, they're still there. And the health, you know, you wonder, I mean, they complain about the weather and they complain about losing a football match. And at the end of the day, you know, as long as we have our health and as long as we can get out of bed, we've nothing to complain about.
Well, we send our sympathy, of course. I don't suppose they're watching today, but anyway, we send our sympathy to Deirdre and the family. It was a great shock to anybody who knew Noel down through the years and who respected him.
By the way, sorry, before I go, I have two things.
Sportsman, yes.
One of the reasons why I'm on today is that I have a book out at the moment.
You have?
I thought he'd forget it.
Shooting from the hip, the Pat Spillane story, and you're signing copies where tomorrow?
I'm signing copies, so if people want to abuse me, or even if there is somebody out there who wants to say something nice to me, I'll be in Easton's tomorrow at 12:30, and the book is, like I said, it's an honest, it's a forthright account of my life and times in Gaelic football, and it's, by the way, it's sponsored by the Bank of Ireland.
I see it's sponsored by the Bank of Ireland. Shooting from the hip, the Pat Spillane story by Pat Spillane and Sean McGoldrick. Easton's on O'Connell Street tomorrow.
12:30 tomorrow, if you want to abuse me.
There'll be a thundering mob wanting to talk to you.
Wanting to.
Well, listen, you're a great fellow, and thanks very much indeed for doing the show. Well done. OK, Pat Spillane, ladies and gentlemen, just before we... dear, oh dear. You're in great form. You're in great form, no doubt about it. Right, just before we leave you, last